Good morning, and this is Kate Willens broadcasting to you live on American Freedom Radio. We are going to have an incredible lineup of people today helping the radio station bring its message forward into the world. And I'm very, very happy and pleased to be here to welcome Michael J. Murphy, who is really central to the movement of geoengineering, a leader and a producer, director, creator of two incredible films that have done more to bring this issue into the light of day than really anything else I can think of. So, Michael, we are so thrilled to have you here and have so many questions to ask you. So welcome to American Freedom Radio.
Oh, thank you, Kate, and thank you for having me on. Really, what's important is that we're covering this issue and the new updates. I mean, there has been so much that's been going on in relation to this issue, and we are on top of things and moving forward, especially with my next film, An Unconventional Shade of Gray, which it's a call to action film. So we're going up into the aerosols, collecting samples. We're going to take that into the courtroom. As a result, we are going to impact not only laws, but also legislation, which is, again, expected to legalize geoengineering. So we have a lot of plans and direct actions within this film. So we're trying to mobilize an army of peacekeepers, people that want to save the planet, and we're going to do it. So it's very exciting to be a part of this project. Anyways, with that long speech, thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. And of course, you've touched on many of the salient points that I wanted to bring up. I want to talk about your film. I want to talk about Paris and the climate conference that's coming up and what you consider to be the most important issues. I want to get our listeners involved, and I want to let them know how to become involved directly with the work that you're doing. But I wanted to begin, if you don't mind, and tell me if you do mind, because it may be that in this time I know you want to go directly into those points because they're so crucial for where we are right now. But could you just tell us a little bit about how you even woke up to geoengineering and how I guess you did What in the World Are They Spraying in 2010, and you followed it a couple of years later with Why in the World. Can you just give us a little background as far as your own waking up and the gripping that this issue had on you and how you then took that into making these films?
Yes, it was kind of an act of God. Somebody had told me about this probably, I think it was back in 2007. And like most people, I thought they were crazy. I didn't think there was much validity to it. But I was teaching in Arizona. I was a teacher for a while. And when we went outside, I noticed the skies were changing. I went to Arizona State University from Chicago and remembered that the deep blue skies rarely ever had a blemish unless we had like a winter storm or something. But I noticed about 4 to 5 days we had what appeared to be cirrus clouds. So I knew the climate was changing. I knew something was different. Didn't know what it was. It wasn't until somebody had told me about chemtrails, and then I started researching, and I became very concerned, started viewing things visually in terms of changes in our atmosphere. But what really woke me up, I started doing videos, YouTube videos, on the internet about chemtrails. And then somebody invited me to a geoengineering conference. And it was interesting because I said, I'm really not interested in geoengineering. I think I'm going to focus on this chemtrail issue. And sure enough, they said, it is the chemtrail issue. You have to listen to this. So we went in. Anyways, long story short, for several days, we listened to scientists talk about their plans and proposals to spray 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum in our sky. Everything that we were seeing, they were talking about, and the consequences, in terms of droughts in certain places, floods in others, all of the consequences that we were seeing were coming to fruition. So we recorded that. And I put that out to my small audience at the time, and it linked geoengineering and credible data scientists talking about these programs, and also rain tests that we had, that many people had been acquiring. So it brought what was kind of deemed as a conspiracy issue. We brought some credible information, and due to that, a lot of people contributed by pre-ordering DVDs and offering donations. We were able to make What in the world are they spraying? Tens of millions of people have seen that, and it's been definitely a catalyst. And then why in the world are they spraying? And we did the same thing. It was from people contributing. I'm now working on the third and most important, again, call to action film, which is an unconventional shade of gray. And this is going to have very precise and specific actions that we can do. And I fully am confident that we have the right ingredients to stop geoengineering. So I'm very confident this film will be a major catalyst.
So do me a favor. Tell us a little bit more about the film, how it differs from the prior two films, and, you know, with some depth, and you know, and I want to talk also about the financing of it and what you need, and all of it. So just go for it and tell us more about the film.
Sure. An Unconventional Shade of Gray is really both films. Okay, they reached, for a first-time filmmaker, pretty large audiences. And but after Why in the World Are They Spraying, I began to look at the movement. And there are a lot of really important people doing a lot of important things, bringing forth great information. And I began to realize, based on what we're seeing in terms of the political legal realm, I began to realize these people are not overly concerned about information. While bringing information to the public is very important, I think they're laughing, because what they're trying to do is pass legislation now which will provide the framework to legalize geoengineering without our input, without the input of our legislators. So I said something more other than information has to be done, because bottom line, I did two films. I put my blood, sweat, and tears, worked 7 days a week for the past 4.5 years, tired, beat up, and I said, this is not doing it. This is not going. Making another film is not going to stop geoengineering, but recording and bringing forth the information to the audience that we hit before will. So the goals of this film, we look at the geopolitical system as it is. Currently, we have, just in about 10 days, we have the Paris Climate Conference. I went to Paris over the summer. What they're planning on doing, based on this concept of CO2 as being the major factor in climate change, they're creating a carbon dictatorship. And this carbon dictatorship is going to be formed by an unelected body, the UN and the IPCC, that will have jurisdiction and be micromanaging our lives without our input, without the input of our legislators. So to transfer trillions of dollars of our tax money, and you want to talk about taxation without representation, this is what this is. They're creating global governance. Can you just
unpack that a little bit about this transference of trillions of dollars that you have on your website? I'm curious more about that.
Yeah, well, with the carbon tax. So they're stating that what they're doing is cap and trade. So we are all going to have to dramatically reduce maybe 40, 50% of our carbon usage. That means that's not voluntary. That is going to be something that is demanded. So we have these smart meters on our home, and they're going to be looking at ways to offer incentives and disincentives, such as rewards and fines. So real possibility is you might turn your light on, your light switch on past 9:30, and you might have a limit. If you accidentally turn that on, you might get fined $100. They are going to be dictating what appliances we can use. And what I mean by that, if you use the vacuum cleaner that you're using today, they can determine with the smart meters what you're using. And if it's not what this new corporate government says you must purchase, you could get fined $100, $200, whatever that fine will be. Essentially what they're doing is creating an entirely new green marketplace. And a lot of it's, I think, cleaner energy, which is not a bad idea, but creating a carbon dictatorship where our legislators, where we do not have any input in terms of what they do, and the taxation without representation. We're giving a huge chunk of power. We are dismantling governments around the nation. This is the creation of a global governance, and it will be the most oppressive, most political shift of power in the history of the planet.
Okay,
this
so
thing
Michael,
is huge. It's huge.
You know, we hear a lot about the New World Order. We hear a lot about the UN. How is this all going to happen legally? In other words, when you say we're paying taxes for carbon taxes, who will we be paying them to, and what premises is this new global body? How are they claiming legality for all of this? If you can just kind of tell us about that a bit.
Yes, they're claiming legality based on the supposed state of emergency, that climate change is the biggest national and international climate threat that we have. So people are gladly, many good people or well-intended or people that think they're doing good are supporting this. We have millions of people marching, demanding that our legislators do more to stop climate change, but they're not specific. You don't give somebody who you don't know or even who you know, here's $1 million. I just want you to do a little more. What are they going to do with that $1 million? They're not going to represent your needs, your wants. And that's what's going on. I want to point out, which is very important, geoengineering programs, they're they're designed to change the temperature of our planet and manipulate our weather. And all climate models that they're using, basing on these laws, none of them contain the huge elephant in the room, which is geoengineering. And because of that, I went to France. I talked to some of the world's most predominant scientists. They said our climate models are flawed because they do not contain all of the factors. And you can't move forward with legislation, with taxation, with destruction of nations, and moving forward with the UN police force, which the Obama administration just announced will be coming onto American soil. They're not coming to protect our free speech and our rights. They're coming to dictate this new government, and it's going to be with a whip, it's going to be with a chain, and we are going to be taxed, oppressed, but like no other time in history. And again, all of this is based on models that are flawed and fraudulent, and we can prove that.
Okay, so if we can prove it, and from what I'm reading, there are a number of scientists, a sizable number, thousands of them, that are saying this model of global warming is not accurate. I've heard, I heard a really eminent climatologist from England who had his career destroyed because he said that anthropogenic warming from CO2, that means man-made warming from CO2, is only contributing 5% to the increase in the heat in the atmosphere. And he said that CO2 is the result of heating rather than the cause of heating. He was from Oxford or Cambridge, don't have his name right now, had his career destroyed, and many, many others are in a similar camp. So do you think that we're going to see some kind of an inner fracturing of this whole movement based on some scientists that are wanting to put this truth forward? Or do you think you don't think so? I
don't think the scientists have the right issue. And the reason is this. When I went to Paris, I spoke with a lot of the scientists. They are well funded in terms of grant money in the research. And the research was, every scientist we spoke to was funded for the purpose of finding CO2 as the cause of global warming. So you have tens of thousands of documents, of research that shows, that indicates that CO2 is the cause. And then you have a division in the scientific community, although the people wanting to create this global governance, this transfer of trillions of dollars of wealth, says there's a consensus in the scientific community. There's not. So we have contradictory data. You bring that into a courtroom, you are not going to get conclusive to stop this agenda. You are not going to get enough conclusive evidence. There's too much confusion on the issue. The only way that we are going to stop this, what we're doing, we're in the middle of our aerosol collection project. We're going up, we're testing the trails. And while we don't have any conclusive results back yet, we're very confident that we will.
So tell us about that project and where you are with it, what you've done already, and the time span.
You got it. And I just want to point out, proof that geoengineering is occurring, then we can say, I want to point out why this is important. Then what we can do is go into courtrooms around the world. We can prove that geoengineering changes the planet's temperature. Because of this, it's impossible, literally impossible to determine whether the planet's warming or cooling.
Right.
Impossible. That is not debatable. And going in with that, we can get an injunction on this climate change legislation and then move forward with getting back the damages that people will and already have. There are climate carbon taxes, for example, in California. So we have a class action lawsuit just waiting to happen. That's the only way that we are going to stop this agenda, because there's too much other contradictory argument. There's no debate about geoengineering changing our planet and making it possible. So I stay out of the debate, whether it's warming or cooling, because we could argue that for the next 20 years. And guess what? This government will be established. But again, it's not debatable, the truths that I speak about geoengineering creating climate change. And again, being impossible to get an accurate reading of our planet. So we're going up with a number of people into the atmosphere. We have a world-renowned scientist, Dr. J. Marvin Herndon, who's overseeing this project. He's going to be writing a peer-reviewed paper, which is court-admissible evidence. And we have teams. We're looking for pilots, and we need support for this project to pay for the gas. We have an aerosol collection company that specializes in crime scene cleanup and crime scene testing, who is supporting us in terms of with the testing. So we have all of the ducks in order. When we get the results that we expect to get, we're going to be bringing that into courts of law around the world, providing people who are moving in truth and integrity. Not everybody doing this work is in truth and integrity. So that's the only way that we're going to stop this. I know that some other people have tried to file lawsuits, and God bless them. But we need. So
how can we help you? You know, how can we help you financially, and how can we help you through manpower to facilitate these plans?
That's a great question. Sign up on our emailing list, and we need. We're pre-selling the DVD. We need angel support. We need about bare minimum $7,000 to get an airplane into the sky to do this in Hawaii. Have my entire team set. We're ready to go. We're just waiting for gas money, essentially. Go to unconventionalgray.com and please participate, help support this project. And I will do my best in getting these results. But again, I think it's the only way to stop this.
So fantastic. So that's unconventionalgray.com to contribute to this essential cause. I wonder if people really understand just how essential this is. And you know, I was thinking about that this morning and thinking about, even though it's kind of, you know, people could think of it as kind of a background issue because it literally is happening in the background of our entire global life. It's happening in our skies. Many people aren't looking at the skies. And yet this issue is making possible all the plans that this global government, with its military, you know, with its surveillance, with its bioengineering, and that's something else I'd like to bring into this in a moment. But this is really the silent and secretive kingpin of so many agendas. And I wonder if you could say anything about that from what you understand.
Geoengineering is the tip of the spear in getting into some of the technical stuff. It is destroying our forest. It creates what's called abiotic stress. So when the aluminum and other heavy metals get into the soil, it stresses the soil. And it changes the pH of soils, and it destroys the trees. It destroys our ability to grow organic food. Monsanto has an abiotic stress-resistant seed. Now that we'll grow in this new environment, we're breathing in these nanoparticles with every breath that we take. But they're also using this, creating the changes in our climate to bring forth this issue of global warming, or what they say is global warming or climate change, to create global governance. And it's the Hegelian dialectic, the problem, reaction, solution. Change the climate, get a reaction from the public, who now about 46% of the public supports these measures, although they don't know what they're supporting, because we are going to be majorly capped, which I'd like to get to in a second. And then the solution is them taxing us, taking our money, taking our rights, taking our freedoms away, bringing us into Agenda 21 objectives, which are stack 'em and pack 'em. We interviewed Rosa Corey for this film. And that is exactly what's going on. And because 92% of the public is unaware of geoengineering programs, but recognizes, at least most of the people, that our climate is changing, it's likely that they'll buy into this concept of CO2, and that's what's happening. Once they find out about geoengineering and that it is changing our climate, then we can move forward. People can stand up demanding that our court system and other systems say no to this oppressive agenda, and we're very close. It's a second to midnight right now. My belief is we're hoping to get the film out earlier. We're still waiting for the support. I have an incredible team. I got an incredible editor I was worked on many Hollywood feature films who now just came on board, and we'll be announcing that very soon. So this will be, it's the most important project, hands down, that I have ever been a part of. And again, I want to state, I just want to applaud the other activists who are bringing forth information, sharing information, waking people up. But again, sharing information is not going to only stop this, and I want people to please continue doing that. But a large part of our activism now has to be focused on the fronts that we're being attacked, and that's legislative and politically. And if we miss this point, all of our work is in vain.
So do you have a great legal team set up, or how are you going to actually bring this into the courts and in the global courts?
I'm going to bring this right now. I'm collecting names, so you can go to geoengineeringactionnetwork.org. Once we have, I don't want to put the cart before the horse and take legal action without these tests. I think that's useless. I don't think we'll accomplish anything other than bringing this issue into court and having it knocked down. Once we have conclusive proof, then we can go and tie this into the climate change agenda. And this is the most powerful agenda in the history of the planet. We have the ability to knock it down in courts around the world once we get the results. But in terms of taking it into court before the results, again, I think that might do more damage.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm not suggesting that. I just wondered, in terms of the timing of the Paris climate talks, are they expected to actually sign something there? Or how long do you think this process on their end is going to take before there's actual global legislation? And
Mid-December.
Mid-December?
Mid-December 5-year plan of implementation.
So they are expected to sign this thing then and there?
The Obama administration has been this has been their key agenda. So they have numerous times stressed their desire to be a part of this. I can almost guarantee you that it will be signed. If not, I'll be very shocked. But yeah, we're expecting.
Okay. So then your work then in terms of the time frame, once this is signed into global governance law, then how do you stand a chance to go against that at that point?
We have a 5-year planned implementation. So it's based on fraud, and we can prove that. So fraud, I think, has 5 years. At least here in the United States, I would have to talk to an international lawyer. But so we can move forward, and we all have a collective interest within this. What's interesting, we want to get this into courtrooms around the world before this system is set up. And the reason for this is the TPP in relation to it. What they're doing is setting up global tribunals, and these tribunals are formed by the corporate interests. So let's say if a state sets up, which we were working on for a while, the Maui geoengineering county ordinance, which would ban geoengineering around Maui County. Once this tribunal is set up, this corporate tribunal will be able to sue local jurisdictions if they create legislation which would impact their profitability.
Wow.
And geoengineering has that profitability. So time is really short. And again, we had worked on that. We had set that aside because now we're looking at the legal and political realms. And this, again, I can't stress how critical it is that a legal team move forward in this capacity. If you're not paying attention to this, you're missing our chance to get these programs stopped. So we're moving forward. Whoever wants to move forward with us, we will interview these attorneys, seeing if they're on board, and getting counsel for them. But I'm very confident that this is the only action at this time that will stop these programs, and I'm very confident that we will.
So, Michael, if a person, such as myself, wanted to become involved in the class action lawsuit, would they have to have a specific tort, a specific wrongdoing? Like for me, it's kind of psychological torture. I don't really know how, and of course some of my trees are dying, but I don't know if I have something specific to bring. So would I be able to be a candidate to support this as, I don't know what the legal term is.
You already have punitive damages. What's funny is, and my ex-wife used to laugh about this. She said, "You blame everything on chemtrails, even if you're having a bad day." And it was kind of a joke, We would argue, and I'd say, "It has to be the chemtrails. It's stressing me out," And it was just a little side joke that we had. But in reality, there's nothing that this has not impacted in terms of health, in terms of our emotions. a number of things. However, so there are thousands of directions that we could go. I'm very confident that moving forward, just if you buy gas and there's a carbon tax, those are monetary damages. And I think the most effective way, again, to move forward is addressing this by taxing people based on fraudulent models. That is provable. It's very simple. That is how I believe is the best way to move forward. However, we're open to other areas, but then you get into, let's say if you have Alzheimer's, which has gone up considerably since these programs have ramped up, and of course they're spraying aluminum into our sky. There are a number of sources of aluminum, so absolute proof in terms of getting people reimbursed for that could be a challenge. There have been just damages on every front, but I think the easiest thing, again, to prove is the carbon taxes, other things based on the flawed and fraudulent models. Mm-hmm. Very simple.
Okay. So, I've been working, this may not be a direction you want to touch upon, but I did want to mention it. I've been working with Clifford Carnicom at Carnicom Institute for the past 4 years. And of course, he discovered bioengineered organisms in these aerosols back in close to the year 2000. So clearly we've got something going on here that is not only restricted to climate modification and weather alteration, but we've got also a bioengineering program, and many, many people have become severely sick and damaged, and that's the crux of his research. But I just wondered if you wanted to speak to that in any way. I know it hasn't directly involved your work, but I'm sure you're aware of it. Can you say something about that? Oh dear. I'm here. Okay. Did that get across?
No,
okay.
Yes, I heard you, but you didn't hear me.
Okay.
Clifford Carnicom he's been on the forefront of bringing forth really important information, and it's critical to the movement in general. And there's no question there are so many components to this issue. And my area is focusing on the climate. It's
right.
Focusing on this issue, which is very important. Clifford has an equally, if not more important, role in the approach that we're taking. But I think specializing is very important in this issue, because we all have different objectives which are revolving around this one idea. So,
I know, but the reality is that in some court of law, perhaps in a heavenly court of law, this incredible crime against humanity will be revealed in all of its different aspects, because when you're a Morgellons sufferer, and we all, he has found that these organisms are kind of everywhere. They're in our food supply, they're in our water supply. The damages are so great that I would love to see, that aspect of it brought into the courts. Maybe it's not going to happen with the initiative that you're doing, but, it's very important. So anyway, at this juncture, we do have a couple of guests that I also wanted to bring into the conversation, and that would be Sylvain Henry, and we've also got Dr. Marvin Herndon, I believe, in the background.
Yeah,
so I just wanted to invite them into the show whenever that's possible. Danny Romero, who's controlling the board here. And
hello.
Hello, Danny.
How are you?
Hi there.
Who is saying hello?
This is Marvin, and that is Sylvain.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So welcome. And I would like to, I can give a little bit of an introduction about Dr. Herndon, although it's probably not necessary to our listeners. But, and Sylvain, you're going to have to introduce yourself, because I only know a little bit about your work. But Dr. Marvin Herndon has written 2 peer-reviewed papers on the subject of coal fly ash being the substantive agent that is being sprayed in the aerosols. And from what I understand, his latest paper was retracted, and that's a whole nother legal argument in itself. But he is a nuclear physicist. He is brilliant. He's also a songwriter, as I well know, because I've recorded some of his songs. And welcome to the show, Marvin.
Hi, I'm pleased to be here. It's nice to hear your voice again, and to see that you're doing something new and exciting that will be of great help to people.
So tell us, a little bit, I know that the two of you are working together now on this new initiative to gather the aerosol samples. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, there are actually several thrusts to what we're involved in. One of them is to get good samples for analyses, data that will go into peer-reviewed scientific papers. Another thing is, and this is a subject I'm really interested in right now, is I would like to invite airline pilots to come forward and talk with me, either on the record or off the record, because I have some critical questions. I've learned some fascinating bits of information from one pilot, and it fits together very well with some experimental data. And I'd like to find some corroborating evidence on that.
Wow, that's so fascinating. You know, I mean, I feel like we're involved here with really the greatest work of our time, you know, aside from maybe feeding the world, not with GMOs, of course. But I can't think of anything more important, and I just so applaud that you've stepped forward to do this, and that you're working with Michael is just fantastic. I really didn't know that you were involved with that.
Oh, this is. Has Michael told you about the experiment that's planned for the spring?
No.
Oh, this is fantastic. This is probably for a program all in itself, but a couple of chaps in New York are planning to go paragliding. Not ordinary paragliding. Paragliding to set a world's record at something like 30,000 feet.
Wow.
And they plan to do that.
30,000 feet.
Yes, and they plan to do that collecting samples. Now, this is one of the great human challenges. I mean, it's cold up there.
Wow.
I mean, it's freezing cold, below freezing. Plus, you've got winds of 100, 150 miles an hour, and even the equipment has to be kept warmed because it would freeze. And so I sort of liken this to the first attempt to
go to the moon. To go to the moon?
No, they had a comfortable ride up there. I'm thinking more in terms of something like climbing Mount Everest for the first time, where you have really extremes, where you have to have your own oxygen, you have to keep warm. It's where you're really putting your life on the line, and that's what these guys are doing. And hopefully, this will attract a lot of attention.
So do these guys understand the ramifications of what it is they're doing? Do they understand this program?
Oh, yes. Yes, they do, and they understand the science involved. And so they've invested quite a bit of money in just the preparations, because they have to design almost, you could think of them as spacesuits, literally, with pouches like a kangaroo to keep the arms and instruments warm. I mean, this is incredible, but it's a great adventure from the human endurance standpoint. But it also is a chance to snag these samples way up there where they are uncontaminated by anything. And so this is planned for in the spring, and Michael's been very much involved in this, and I'm sort of the scientist on board.
So tell us about the laboratory that's going to be deciphering what the samples are comprised of.
Oh, these will the people are part of an organization that's involved in crime scene cleanups. So they know all about different laboratory techniques. And so these samples will be subjected to every kind of laboratory examination we can do for the testing for the elements, microscopic examinations, or what you'd call petrologic examinations, and hopefully also examinations for organic compounds.
Mm-hmm. So will it, I guess, of course, these laboratories have equipment that can determine if there are biologicals in there as well and what the nature of those would be? Or are we simply looking at, is there aluminum, is there barium, the chemical elements?
Well, a lot of it will depend on the samples that are taken,
mm-hmm.
and what comes out. Hopefully, we'll get all of these things done.
Mm-hmm. Great,
because
great.
This is. I mean, you're talking about a major undertaking.
We really are. And the results of which then, as Michael is saying, and Michael, I'd like to invite you back into the conversation to tell us more about the legal, what your legal hopes are, how how can we help you do this, and what, if you can just spin out a little bit more about the process after these samples then are taken and we know what's in them.
Yes. Right now, people that want to get involved with this can go to geoengineeringactionnetwork.org and get their name on a list.
Okay, so say that again slowly so that everybody can write it down. Where do we go?
It's geoengineeringactionnetwork.org.
Okay.
And you can find actually a link on the unconventionalgray.com website, which we gave out before.
Okay.
And you can register your name. We'll put you on a list. Once we get the test results that we believe that we're going to get, mm-hmm. we're going to put them into the film. That film will have a call to action. By that time, we will have our legal team up and running, and people will begin to support this. We'll have funds to move forward as well with this project. So essentially what people can do today is sign up if they're interested in getting on the list as being a plaintiff for this lawsuit. And when we move forward in the way that we will move forward, we will let them know. But right now it looks like damages due to the climate change agenda, which again is the largest transfer of monetary and political power that we have had in the history of this planet.
Okay.
And we will all experience these damages. So again, so we don't put the cart before the horse. We're not running into the courtroom demanding that people look at rain tests. And rain tests are very important. Mm-hmm. And we are well aware of, because they match what geoengineers say they want to spray, and it matches a number of patents designed to spray for geoengineering purposes. There are thousands of other dots that connect, but going into a courtroom is a whole different scenario. So this will give us absolute proof that geoengineering is deliberately occurring and that it is changing our climate. And with models that do not include the biggest factor in climate change, the biggest elephant in the room, those are flawed, they're fraudulent. You cannot move forward with taking people's money. You cannot move forward with mandates. And we're demanding that the mandates, climate talks, that everything is immediately rescinded and that geoengineering is stopped. Then we will see. Once the planet returns, maybe a 5 to 10 year period, then we'll determine whether the planet's warming or cooling. Today you can't do it, and you certainly cannot take all of this money and other power.
I love what you're saying, because I think there's been some real confusion in our movement, as you well know, around the issue of global warming. Some people saying that, well, global warming has been occurring and the aerosol, the chemtrails are there to ameliorate the situation. At least that was the understanding of the scientists. You have said that we really don't. I mean, some people are saying, well, Michael Murphy doesn't believe that there's global warming, therefore we're not going to support him. But the reality is, you are saying, from what I understand, that we cannot determine whether it is warming or whether it is cooling because we've got this geoengineering program. How can we possibly know?
That's correct. There's absolutely an individual who went into the movement who is twisting my words and brought in this issue of global warming. And I want to go to Cass Sunstein, who is a member of the Obama team. He wrote Cognitive Infiltration, which specifically mentioned bringing global warming into movements for the purpose of creating division. That has been brought in. We are setting the record straight. And I do not support nor deny climate change, because you cannot even take a side when geoengineering is going on, period.
Exactly.
And that is inarguable. And I've asked people, if you want to take a side in this and create division in the movement, then you tell me how you can determine what the planet's temperature is with ongoing geoengineering program. They can't. But they continue to bring in this issue of global warming. bringing division about, and it is a plan to destroy this movement. I've worked too hard. We have worked too hard. Humanity, this is the future of humanity. If somebody is doing this for money and political power, they shall be shamed. And that is wrong. And it's done enough damage, and we're here to set the record straight.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Period.
Okay.
And forgive me for getting a little emotional, but we've seen this issue, in my words and the words of other real important activists, be twisted time and time again. And it's time that that stops, that we come in with the truth, that we move forward, not in an action, but in an effective action, which is aimed and geared towards getting these programs stopped.
Right.
And action alone,
go ahead. Sorry.
Action alone is not going to stop this. It's effective action that is based on effective principles. I feel that we have this, and I'm very confident that we can get these programs stopped. But as long as we're debating and we're arguing over issues that have no benefit to our movement, so if you support global warming, if you really support that, nobody's been able to tell me how that benefits what we're trying to accomplish in getting geoengineering stopped. If you support that, it actually supports the very legislation that will create the structure to legalize geoengineering.
Right.
However, if you go in with middle ground, you don't argue it, but you say it's a moot point because you can't even determine it. That's where our point of power is.
That's brilliant. I just want to say for the record that my personal feeling is that I'd like to think that everyone is working out of their best understanding and that their commitment to getting these programs stopped and that there are different views. And I really appreciate your not taking a view on it, but simply saying we cannot determine the truth until we stop these programs. That's just, how can you possibly argue with that? And I'd like to, I think that, yes, please.
Oh, let me give a boost, please, to Michael.
Okay.
He's number one. He's absolutely correct. You've been toying, tinkering, twisting, perverting a system for something like 15 years. It's not natural, and you can't make measurements reliably to say whether it's cooling or heating.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, I published a short paper in 2008 and pointed out that the climate models, all of the climate models, are based upon two assumptions that are not accounted for. That heat, changes in heat coming from the sun and changes in heat coming out of the earth. The climate models assume they're all constant, but they're not. And so all of those 25 models that the IPCC raves about suffer from the same failing. So this is nonsense, what's being promoted.
Can you explain that just a bit further? So you're saying that there's heat from the sun and heat from the earth that is not being accounted for in the models that have been done? And why would that be?
Well, the models are computer programs. They're based upon assumptions. And usually somebody designs a model knowing the end result and then putting in whatever's needed to get there. Now, the easy assumption to make is that the heat from the sun is constant because it's difficult to know the variability. And it's difficult to put this into some simple-minded model, so they assume it's constant. The same thing with the heat coming out of the earth. It's assumed constant. Well, if every potential variable is assumed to be constant, then the very tiny effect you might get from greenhouse effect becomes the only variable, and this is the big deal. And it's flawed reasoning. And I'll give you one good example to show that this is flawed reasoning. There was a paper published not too long ago by a young woman, I think at Columbia University, who showed that the lava being extruded under the water in the South Pacific has changed. The amount that's produced is variable, and it has been variable over time. And that variability seems to be correlated with the variability of temperature in the deep ice cores from the Antarctic. So if the heat's changing, the amount of heat coming out of the lava going into seawater is changing. It's not constant.
Mm-hmm. So we can't make determinations based on. It's like a particular moment in time. You know,
these are flawed assumptions. And there's an old, they're computer programs, and there's an old adage about computer programs. You've probably heard it: garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that applies as well as to these models. So it's nonsense based on the models to say that humans are responsible for global warming. I'm sure humans are responsible for doing a lot of things to this planet, but it's not to the scale that we're being told.
Right.
Now, I'd like to, if I may, just add one other thing with regard to legal. What I hope that people in the legal profession will take note of is the deceit, the lies that have been going on from official sources. You see this on the web. You see this in the documents that the lies that were pushed to cause a legitimate peer-reviewed paper to be retracted, which is still, in my view, not settled. Mm-hmm. I'm still pursuing that. Right. But you find lies. The EPA will tell you that there are no such things as chemtrails. It's a hoax. Mm-hmm. That what's being sprayed are contrails, ice crystals, and they're harmless.
Right.
But I have very good data to indicate to a great certainty that what they're spraying is coal fly ash, and that's a toxic nightmare. And we're all breathing it. Mm-hmm. And it can do all sorts of terrible things. Aluminum.
Can we clarify something, Dr. Herndon? And that is that, you know, there are people in the movement that say coal fly ash might be involved and that there are similar chemicals to what we know to be being sprayed, the aluminum, the barium, the strontium. But people are saying, well, these are nanoparticulates of a much finer size. It's much smaller size than the coal fly ash, or that, would you say that the coal fly ash provides a certain base to which other ingredients are then added, or are you simply saying that it's just raw coal fly ash?
Well, I'm saying, number one, that this is the main substance. I have no doubt that they would add other things to do other thing, like to cause snow to fall. But there's where the coal fly ash comes in a spectrum of sizes down into the micron range, into the submicron range, to the nanoparticle range. Mm-hmm. And what we don't have is any evidence that to suggest that coal utilities are producing or are separating out an extra fine material for the government.
You're saying we don't have that? We don't have that knowledge, or we
no? We don't have. It's easy to do.
Right.
It's an easy process to do. We just don't have it.
Okay.
And the bad part is with coal fly ash, the toxins occur in the finest materials. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the finer particles that are taken and sprayed into the air, the more the toxic materials are in there. So, I mean, this is crimes against humanity.
Right.
Can I interject? Yeah, I'd like to interject. And this is a message out to those who are in the movement. I've received a couple of emails for people that are doubting that this is coal fly ash. And it's not based on any data or anything else. It's based on perhaps a contradictory of our belief system. You know, in both of our films, we put out aluminum, barium, and strontium. It's certainly much more than that. And what Dr. Herndon has done, he's brought forward information, tests, and he has written a peer-reviewed paper on this. And if anybody has any doubts and wants to put doubt in the movement, go up and test this. And that's how we come up with truth. It's not based on opinions. It's not based on, well, this contradicts what I really thought it was before. That's cognitive dissonance. And what we really need to do is bring this into the scientific realm. So
and this is
what we're doing, what we're going up in the airplanes we're looking at everything, and we're prepared to get data that may contradict and may conflict with our belief system. And I've spoken to Dr. Herndon about this, and that's important. That's how we stop these programs. So let's come together. Let's support each other and really get the accurate tests that are going to prove what this is. And I just want to commend Dr. Herndon for doing this, for working with us and putting your career, your reputation, because we know it's under attack right now, because you're bringing forth vital information, and that is something no other scientist has done. So it's about time that we get behind him, we support him, and work together to come up with the absolute truth.
Michael,
and again, I want to commend you.
Appreciate that. You know, I just want to underline what you've said, that we are looking in the spirit of truth to find what is truly there, not based on our prejudices of what we think should be there or what we've said is there. And I also just want to invite all of our listeners to please take this message to your heart and do go and look at the geoengineeringactionnetwork.org and unconventionalgray.com, is it? And you've also got, can you tell us about the Coalition Against Geoengineering?
Oh, yes. Coalitionagainstgeoengineering.org. We have an incredible team right now. G. Edward Griffin and I started this back in 2011. We set it aside for a while. Now we're back up. It's an action-based organization. We're having call to actions planning on once a week, bringing vital information forward. Go to coalitionagainstgeoengineering.org. We're going to have a very exciting call to action. Jolie Diane, who is on our team, she's putting this together, reaching out to our legislators, and it's in relation to geoengineering and how it impacts our climate. And this is going to be geared towards getting information out to our legislators, because a lot of legislators, I was in Sacramento about 3.5 weeks ago, they were completely unaware of what this would mean for the power and authority.
It looks like we're going to have to be winding up. We've only got another few seconds. So, Michael, and I just want to thank you so much for being on our show, and Dr. Herndon. Sylvan, I'm sorry we didn't get to you. God bless America.
America, look up and see the light. White haze above, save those you love and join us in the